All right, here we are for the third and final part of this lecture. So we've been talking about the Battle of Antietam and the different phases of the battle that took place. It was a one-day battle. And so we talked about the cornfield, we talked about the Bloody Lane, and then now Burnside's Bridge. So basically it's a small bridge. It's a one-road bridge, one-path bridge. Maybe 5 or 6 guys shoulder to shoulder can cross this bridge. And as you can see on the map here, there's a focus completely and totally on that bridge. If the Confederacy can get across it, they can swing behind the Union Army. And then General Burnside is the Union general that's in charge of defending the bridge. They were able to do so pretty well. Burnside eventually was able to get across the bridge and to establish themselves on the opposite side of the bridge. And the Confederacy was on the verge of being massively just defeated and routed. As you can see on the map here, A.P. Hill's division arrived literally in the last second to provide support to Longstreet and Jackson, who were there, that were the generals in charge of that part of the battlefield. And they were able to have enough forces to bring a stalemate, and they stopped fighting. And so this war, or this battle, just a single battle of Antietam in one single day, there were more guys killed at this one single battle on one day than numerous wars combined that the U.S. was involved with. More men killed in one day than the entire Revolutionary War, the War of 1812, and the Mexican-American War combined, just in one day. That's pretty intense as far as the numbers go. I mean, look at it. You got 12,000 casualties from the Union and 13,000 from the Confederacy. And so that doesn't mean all the ones that are dead. Casualties are wounded, dead, or lost in action. But that's a ton. That's so many. Like I said, that's combined, that's 25,000 people. And like I said, that's more people than were lost in 3 wars combined before this one. So one of the problems that was had was McClellan, when the Confederate Army was on its heels. The day after the battle took place, the Confederate Army decided they were going to retreat out of Maryland and go back into Virginia. And McClellan, rather than going after the Confederate Army and absolutely just crushing them, allowed them to just retreat. And that really ticked Lincoln off. The difference between McClellan and Lincoln is McClellan thinks that he just has to beat the Confederate Army just long enough to make them sorry for seceding, and that they'll come back in the Union and everybody will be happy. Lincoln understands that that's never going to happen, that they will fight to the last man, and the only way that they're going to defeat them is by a complete and total utter victory, meaning that the one side is completely unable to continue fighting. And so Lincoln is really upset with McClellan. And this is actually a picture from them meeting on the battlefield after the Battle of Antietam. And so technically Antietam was a victory for the Union, but it was a big-time loss as far as numbers go. And McClellan loses his job to General Burnside, Ambrose Burnside. So Antietam is a critical point. And so this is what the documentary is that you're going to watch. It's going to be about the Battle of Antietam. So now the Battle of Antietam was a victory that Lincoln absolutely needed. Well before the Battle of Antietam, Lincoln had the idea of emancipating the slaves in the South. And there's a lot of misunderstanding about what actually happened with the Emancipation Proclamation. A lot of people think Lincoln freed all the slaves, which he didn't. He did not. Okay? He wanted this war to be about something more than just Union, and so he wanted to free slaves, but he had to be creative in how he was doing it. And so when he creates this proclamation, it is based on the idea that the slaves are really helping the Confederate Army in their effort to fight, being forced to. And so if we take that away from them, that could hurt. That could hurt the Confederate Army, basically. And so Lincoln wonders if he can do this. And he realized, he says to himself, I've reasoned it within my mind, and I'm going to do it. Now, he said he was going to do this way before the Battle of Antietam, but he was convinced by his cabinet, don't do it yet, because this will seem like desperation. Wait till we have a victory, and then issue the proclamation. And so this was a big military move. So what this was going to do is this was going to free all slaves in the Confederate States, not in the border states. And it was not going to make slavery illegal in the United States. It was just freeing slaves in the southern states that were helping with the Confederacy, or being a boost to the Confederacy. So that's what Lincoln was trying to do, hurt them militarily, and of course free slaves as well. But if this was going to happen, this would allow the U.S. government to confiscate slaves as illegal property. And then once they were and freed, then they'd be freed on their own to do what they want. This would also allow them to be able to join the Union Army if they wanted to. Now, a lot of people looked at this as a good military move, but so many people said, see, Lincoln here, he's thinking, because of the fact that this is a step towards setting slaves free. Yes, it's not all slaves, and it's not making slavery illegal in the country, but it's a step towards that. And there are a lot of people that say, oh, Lincoln's making this war about slavery now. It's not about Union, which arguably, it was becoming a war about slavery. So one of the reasons why also this helped was Union numbers were falling. The U.S. government, with the Emancipation Proclamation, would allow African Americans, and especially escaped slaves, to be free, and then allow them to be able to join the Union Army. Though one of the first groups that was formed was the Massachusetts 54th Regiment. It's led by this guy, Colonel Robert Shaw, and they served with distinction. The Massachusetts 54th did in many battles, and eventually the regiment came to an end in July of 1863 when they were the lead force that fought to capture this fort in South Carolina called Fort Wagner on the coast of South Carolina. And in the regiment, half of them were killed. Robert Shaw was killed in the process. And the regiment ended up being disbanded and put into other black regiments, but fought with distinction. And there's even a movie. The movie's called Glory, and it's a really good movie. If you like Civil War movies, look it up. It won some Oscars for being a good show. But that was a big-time boost for the Union Army. There was opposition to the war. Some people in the North and the South tried to disrupt the war effort. There were anti-war protests in North Carolina, and there were Northern Democrats that were seeking to hurt the Union, and they were called Copperheads. A copperhead is a very poisonous snake, but there is no warning that a copperhead's going to strike. With a rattlesnake, they rattle and they're there, and so there's a warning. With copperheads, they don't. They lie in wait, they're calm, and then they attack. And they're pretty aggressive as well. And they're normally mostly found in northern or northeastern Midwestern states. And so that's why they nicknamed them Copperheads. They were enemies that were secretly in disguise trying to hurt the war effort. And some Northerners obviously opposed the Emancipation Proclamation. So, all right. So now we're done with this lecture. The teacher is going to put on the video about the Battle of Antietam. This will last pretty much the same, or last the rest of class, and then we'll finish it up on Friday when I come back. Please pay attention to the video. Be nice to the sub. Make sure you turn in your notes here for this lecture, and I'll see you on Friday and see if there are any questions. So have a good one.